Hey guys,
Hi.
it's Cauliflower.
You know who I am. I don't even have to say my name.
So it is time for Collie Chats.
Dun, dun, dun.
And you guys, honestly, I just
all
left,
the questions and topics for us to cover. That's really sweet.
I actually just recently left a comment up on Beauty and Beyond about ideas for our Collie Chats, some topics, and I got some really good ones, and apparently some of them are really serious issues.
Oh, yeah.
So we were brainstorming and talking about it, and we decided we were going to cover 2 of those issues. So we're just going to go into it because both of them are very close to our hearts, and both of them are very important, and I know you guys would like to have some input, and we're going to try and do our best with both of them. So the topics that we're covering tonight are mental health illness and the stigmas and taboos that go along with it. And also, which segues into the dealing with the school system and having children that have ADHD or you know,
any type of learning disability,
related
dyslexia,
disabilities.
Stuff like that. Yeah, disabilities.
Now, our backgrounds, if you didn't know this, I have made an entire video about my background in depression. I'll just start with the fact that for me, I started being depressed when I was probably about 8 years old. When I was 11, I tried to take an overdose of aspirin. I knew I was depressed growing up because of my upbringing and because of the fact that my dad wasn't around and my mom had a severe drinking problem, and I wasn't really given a lot of the maternal attention I should have been given. My grandmother was taking care of most of the things that my mom should have taken care of, but stemming from there, as I got older, it got progressively worse for me. In my, I'd say late teens, it started to get to the point where I was having more and more aggressive feelings about things, and I got to a point where I tried again to take my own life. I actually tried to take my grandmother's Xanax, and that was the first time my mother actually saw that this was a problem, and you know, I had an ambulance called on me and I had to be taken to a hospital, and I went into his institution for a while. I don't want to say institution because when you go through the system, you have to go to the mental health area of a regular hospital. So it wasn't like you're institutionalized in the crazy house, you know.
No, they just put you off in a separate ward.
Right, they put you in a separate ward, and it's amazing, like when you think about when it started to where it has progressed. But it started there. After that, especially in my 20s, it got worse because of the fact of, how do I even put this? Between...
I say where you begin.
Yeah, how do I begin? Mainly, I will attribute a lot of it to personal relationships, trying to have, you know, love relationships that didn't work out. I spoke about those, you know, in my recent video about relationships, and what I don't go into is when you are involved as a person that has whatever it is, a mental illness. I don't want to go mental illness because it sounds like you're talking about like you're not mentally there. I think it's mainly you have a chemical imbalance.
There you go. That's a good analogy.
Something that's voided out of your life, and you think of yourself in a whole other perspective than people see you. You also feel the frustration of not knowing how to get that across to other people that you don't fit in. And at the same time, you're trying to live a normal life. You want the normal things, but your brain is not capable of thinking of it being normal because it's so busy telling you how much of a failure you are.
And also trying to figure out, you're trying to figure out under your frustration, what is wrong with you? Why am I feeling this way? Why is all this stuff happening? That also ties in, now that Dawn has said that, it also ties into, like as Dawn was saying, what the other topic was going to be, the kids in school with ADHD, dyslexia, stuff like that. Because they're sitting there trying to learn and trying to comprehend what the teacher is saying, and it's not clicking with them, and therefore that's very frustrating. Speaking as someone who has dyslexia, I can say it is very frustrating when the teacher is trying to explain something and you're not getting it. And therefore, when you don't get it and you're a child, you act out, you do all sorts of things. And so it is very difficult. It is very difficult.
For me, growing up in school, I don't think it was mainly that I had any kind of a disorder, but depression did have an effect on my education.
Oh, yeah.
And my mother was not very active in my education. I mean, mainly my mother was struggling with her own demons and issues, so there wasn't a lot of time for her to put it towards me. In fact, a lot of it was her taking out her anger and aggression on me for not doing better, but at the same time it was like teachers would say to me, to my mother that, you know, my grades went with my mood. So if I was in a not such a great mood, then they went to shit. But depression for me meant that I didn't function or fit in, and that was my main thing. I mean, I tried to be a lot of different things that I wasn't, and I didn't have an identity because I didn't feel like I fit any place. And at the same time, I also had the initiation of me as a person trying to make its way out, but it didn't know how because it was struggling with trying to be something that I wasn't, and at the same time trying to realize that I was a different person, but couldn't get that across to anybody else.
Not even to yourself sometimes.
When you grow up with one parent which had multiple issues and the other parent basically, you know, just disappeared, you know, you start thinking that of all sorts of scenarios and reasons why that other parent is there, and all you want is to kind of just wish that parent was there for you. And that was me mainly. It was always like, you know, I always thought about my dad, and my dad should take me away from all this, and there were very many nights and days that I would hear my mother, you know, destroying herself literally with alcohol, and all I wanted was my dad to come and get me, and he didn't. And I had to grow up before I could understand what was really happening. I grew up way before my time. Way before, which I think is why today I struggle with the fact that I am an adult, and no. But fast forwarding to when I did become, you know, as a young adult, and, you know, realizing that there were a lot more issues with me than I even wanted to know, and going to psychiatrists, therapists, them giving you all sorts of fucking medications. For me, I'm not speaking for anybody else. For me alone, I feel like I was such a guinea pig along the way. Like,
well, you are.
They just administered this, that, and the other thing. And for me, I'm a strong person in my brain. I was one of those people that was like, no. You know, a lot of them had adverse effects. They had side effects. I didn't like the way they were affecting me, and I would take myself off of them. And it would pose more problems for me because there was never the right chemical mixture. It was always something not good with whatever they were giving me. Anyway, during the time of being depressed, yeah, I had a very hard time reaching things I wanted to reach, accomplishing things I wanted to accomplish. I attribute a lot of the things I was not able to do to the fact that I was always so broken up there that I didn't think I could do a lot of things. And then there was the life obstacles, you know. I mean, I can't physically explain all the things that blocked me from everything I ever wanted to do, but that was like my mantra after a while. It was like, after a while, it was like everything I wanted, all I ever wanted was a normal life, and everything that had to do with being depressed or having something related to it blocked it, and it made me angry, and it made me feel that I was never going to amount to anything. So therefore, then I fell into that hole. And when you fall into that hole, you allow yourself to attract people that are either worse than you or are probably on the same level, but some of them seem to go the direction of, you know, even more extreme than you would. I never abused alcohol or drugs. Never. You would think I would. There was a background of my mother drinking. My dad was a heavy drinker. My uncle was a heavy drinker. And then there was drugs. There was also drugs. I never did that until I got older, way older, and figured I would do that as a result of punishing anybody else who hurt me. The stigmas that come along with that, depending on what you allow to be known. I mean, for me, I didn't allow a lot of people to know.
Dawn's a very private person if you don't know.
They knew I was just very sad or very just upset and angry. A lot of people thought I was nothing but angry. They thought I just had an anger issue, an anger problem. I did. I had a lot of anger. I will not lie to you. Everything that happened to me was written on my face. You couldn't hide it. And then I had things that were done to me, especially in relationships. That's where it impaired me the most. I mean, never mind my growing up and my background, that was enough. My relationships impaired me even further because I got into relationships that just made that whole thing about me being sick worse, because now it was all out there. I was showing people how I can come apart so easily and how I would depend on them for my mood, or how I wanted them to just be a certain way and not be the way they were being towards me, or accepting violence in my life, or accepting, you know, domestic violence, or accepting being treated a certain way. I mean, all of this just, it made me angry, and at the same time I accepted it because there was nothing else, and I was fighting for a real relationship, and that never occurred. So the dangerous point of it is when you think that this is it, this is all you're ever gonna be, and you don't want anybody to think that you're crazy. That's the worst of it. You don't want anybody to think you're crazy, so in your mind you're going to change that, and you're going to now take yourself out of the world, and nobody has a chance to say anything. And for me, my stigma was always, oh, she's angry. I had an anger issue, so that was mainly what people were always, you know, treating me like. Oh, you're angry, or, you know, you're crazy. I got the crazy. Don't think I didn't. I got the crazy. You don't see yourself. You only see yourself one-dimensionally in what you think. You don't see what other people see. That's the bad part about any addiction or illness. Mm-hmm. You don't see what they see until it happens in your own life. And it happened again because I met this guy. And we don't discuss this.
Oh. Well, I moved back, so
we don't discuss this, but when I found him, I had no idea the extent or the level of his own issues.
And believe me, I have a lot.
And he can...
Yeah. I've never really talked about this with anyone on an open scale, like, you know, but now that, like, you know, between you guys, your guys' comments and how accepting everybody is, I'm going to be open and I'm going to talk about it. I guess you could say it all started when I was a kid, and I lived a very sheltered life, and Dawn is moving in and close to the